Stanley Milgram was an American social psychologist who performed a series of experiments with the mindset of studying obedience and authority. The experiments consisted of subjects believing they are administering electric shocks to other people after being told to do so by an authority figure. The goal was to see how far the subjects were willing to push past their own morals because someone in a position of power instructed them to. Milgram, the anime YouTube series, in contrast, is all about exploring this idea of authority and the power it has over others. This story is not just a fictional tale, but an experiment of sorts on us, the viewers, because this series is sort of a choose-your-own-adventure, or should I say, a real-life jury for a fictional story. Before we get started, content warning, this show is focused around the ethics and morality when it comes to different types of murder, death, and suicide. Briefly, we will also be discussing abortion. If these are topics that make you uncomfortable, I suggest watching another video. Perhaps one about a lighthearted comedy anime instead? In the description below? Who said that? Milgram is an interactive web show. We, the audience, have a role in how the story plays out. The audience takes up the role of S, a genderless prison guard who wakes up one day with no prior memory. S is greeted by our guide, named Jackalope.
Accurate name!
Who claims their job is to monitor the 10 prisoners that are being held in Milgram Prison and decide whether or not they're innocent or guilty. As I said, we the audience are actually playing as S, so deciding these verdicts is in our hands using a voting system on Milgram's website. We also have a sort of indirect power over the way S behaves as well. S has their own thoughts and actions, like when they hit prisoners or state their thoughts and feelings. Like, we didn't tell S to do that, but sometimes these actions are based on the audience's feelings. So, S hits a prisoner, it's most likely because the audience saw aggression or dislike towards that character, and the creators wrote that in. Through conversations the fandom has on websites like Reddit, Twitter, or just the comments of the YouTube videos, the creators of Milgram are able to see what the people are thinking about when it comes to certain topics, and incorporate that into the dialogue S uses throughout the series. So S is kind of becoming us. It's honestly really cool to see the viewers have so much control over a story like this. But like I said, this is also kind of an experiment. So much so that we're experiencing all this stuff through S, so oftentimes the audience will say we when referring to something S does, as if we're really in this experiment with them. So when S hits that prisoner, the audience may go, why did we hit them? So the goal is to determine if they're innocent or guilty. How do we figure this out? All the information that we're told at the start of the story is that each prisoner has committed an act of murder. That's it. We don't get to know who they killed, why, or even how many people. We just know they're deemed murderers. In order to uncover the truth, we're given 3 different means to learn about the prisoners. As far as I know, these are the only 3 means that are accessible for English speakers. All their content is in Japanese, so any piece of media that they don't translate to English is done by fans. So the additional information we do have is courtesy of the community, which is pretty cool. That being said, here are 3 main ways I have been able to follow the lore of this story as an English speaker. The first is Twitter posts that are made where prisoners can be asked a series of questions from the audience, and they answer as vaguely as the writers can muster. The second way is voice dramas, which are just audio clips of the prisoners talking to S and being essentially interrogated. But these can sometimes not reveal much other than how they're feeling about their situation. The real way we're able to uncover the story is through music videos! Yeah, apparently Milgram has some sort of machine that can extract the prisoner's thoughts in the form of songs and videos. So basically, to figure out each person's crime, we have to watch a music video and pick it apart for clues to figure out what their murder was and why they did it. What's cool about the storytelling is that we don't get any other ways to see what happens to the prisoners. All we get are those Twitter posts, a 10-ish minute audio clip of them talking to S, and then the actual music video itself. Anything else that happens is told to us from Jackalope later on. We never get to visually see what prison life is like for them or how they interact with one another. It's all just word of mouth at that point. There are 3 trials the prisoners will go through. For each trial, Milgram will extract 1 music video, and once that music video is released, the audience will have a period of time where they can vote if they think the person is innocent or guilty based on the video. I will say these music videos are spaced out like months apart, so the voting lasts a while. And by the time you get to the last prisoner, most of the others have already been judged and the voting's been closed for them. When all prisoners have been voted on, the trial ends, their punishment is given based on who's guilty, and a new trial begins with new music videos so we can get more information about them. This can help the audience decide if we still think they're guilty after given new information. I was originally going to dive into the story based on everything we've seen, but I've decided to be more vague to encourage you to check it out for yourself. If you like psychology, social experiments, true crime, angsty anime, or even just good music, then this is for you. Keep in mind, I will be giving brief spoilers such as who was voted guilty or innocent, as well as revealing what crimes some of the characters committed. In some cases, they're obvious from a single watch of the music video, but some involve analyzing and looking at symbolism. At the time of recording this, the third trial has just begun, with the first music video already out. So if you're watching my video around the time of its upload, then there's still plenty of time to get into this show and vote on who you think is innocent or guilty. Each music video has several months between them, like I said, so these will upload pretty slowly. If you want to experience the story for yourself, feel free to click out of here and do so now. Alright, if you're still here, let's get into this. Here are our 10 prisoners whose fate is in our hands. We have Haruka, Yuno, Futa, Mu, Shido, Mahiru, Kazui, Amane.
That's a child!
And that's an ugly, pimply bitch! Yep, I'm not.
Mikoto, and Kotoko. Each trial's outcome affects what happens to each prisoner. When a prisoner is deemed innocent, Jackalope tells us their ideas are affirmed, which, as far as I know, it just means they get a self-esteem boost. They're led to believe that their murder is justified, but for some prisoners who feel guilty about what they've already done, it confuses them because they don't understand why we think they're justified when they don't. When a prisoner is deemed guilty, they are restricted. I'm not sure if they're given different treatment like food or ability to roam the prison, since those are things we don't get to actually see. We're only told about it later. But we do see them physically restrained. So we understand as the audience that our decisions will have consequences, but in the first trial, it's not really clear how major these consequences are going to be. These decisions also affect what their songs will look like in the next trial. In the first trial, all songs are basically about their murders, or how they feel about it, or how their thought process works. In the second trial, the songs are literally just about how they don't understand why we chose them to be innocent or guilty. From an outside perspective, this seems like a simple game where the audience can choose the outcome of a story. But it's more than that. I believe it's a social experiment on us, the people. Remember, this is called Milgram, named after a real-life social psychologist. There's a meaning behind the name. In the greater scheme of things, Milgram is a dive into how far we as the audience will go when it comes to morality. It's an insight as to what the general populace finds acceptable or not. Looking at some of the outcomes of the first trial is a good example of that. I will start with a divisive character, Yuno. Through her music video, we're able to discover that her crime was that she became pregnant through compensated dating, and she ended up getting an abortion. This is definitely a difficult topic for Milgram to cover, and it's one that sparked a lot of conversation. Abortion is a moral dilemma for some people, as some consider it to be a form of murder. But then lies the question, is it worth getting locked up for? Some people voted yes, some people voted no. The voting was in her favor in the end, and it altered the second trial a lot, not just based on the votes, but what people were discussing. People were quick to theorize, saying things like she must have had a reason, or pitying her for what she went through. When the second trial starts, Yuno explains that she can hear voices in her head telling her things about her trial. Many of the other prisoners point out that they have the same problem, and based on what these voices say, it's clear that they're supposed to be the audience discussions that are being had out in our world. Yuno explains how she heard these voices pitying her, and she explains how she hates being put into a box like that. She hates that sort of preachy mentality. She explains that she did what she did because she wanted to. She wasn't forced into compensated dating, and she wasn't forced to have the abortion afterwards. Yuno explains how morals are difficult, how people feel as though they have to police what is right and wrong. They have to make up their own reasons to justify things that don't concern them. Because she's prisoner number 2, this discussion with Yuno happens right after we see the results from the previous trial. This is one of our first introductions to seeing what result our assumptions and choices have created. And she's telling us we're wrong. We're misguided. It raises the question of whether or not we can make decisions like this based on such little evidence, because in Yuno's case, her music video did not give a lot of evidence to begin with. It was all just mostly symbolism. But that's just Yuno. There are still 9 other prisoners with far different cases. Let's look at what else could be justified as murder or not. Prisoner number 7, Kazui. His music video reveals that he may have driven his wife to suicide, though the details about it are fuzzy. Did he have an affair? Was he just looking to get divorced? Either way, the audience deemed this as justifiable and gave him an innocent verdict. Okay, so driving someone to suicide is not considered murder. Good to know. So now let's look at prisoner number 3, Futa. His music video reveals him to be a sort of internet social justice warrior with his friends. When they see people doing problematic behaviors, they expose them on social media and essentially bully them into shame. Futa's victim is revealed to be a middle school girl who also committed suicide because of Futa's online bullying. So even though this trial happened first, we could imagine the audience would deem Futa as innocent, since that's what was decided for Kazui, right? Wrong. He was deemed guilty. What happened? Their murders were both focused around someone killing themselves because of their actions. Why is one outcome different than the other? Is it because of who died? Futa's being a middle school girl, maybe? Is it because we don't know the circumstances of Kazui's wife's suicide? Part of me believes it's because of the two men's personalities. Futa is very aggressive, going as far as to attack S when they meet in person. He also denies doing anything wrong and is very difficult to work with. Kazui, on the other hand, has a calm demeanor and shows obvious guilt for what happened. Their songs even reflect their mentalities. Futa's song in his music video is intense. He even screams some of his lines. Whereas Kazui's song is a ballad, it's sorrowful and slow. I believe their personalities and willingness to cooperate with us influenced how we view their crime, which is super interesting to see. Someone who is more aggressive is less likely to be shown mercy. So if Futa's crime deems him guilty, what about people who have directly killed someone? Let's look at prisoner number 4, Mu. In her music video, we see that she was being bullied, and as a result, she snaps and kills one of the bullies. Not even in self-defense, mind you, she ran up to her and attacked first. If Futa was considered guilty for indirectly killing someone, then us seeing her in the act would definitely deem her guilty, right? Wrong again. She was voted innocent because of the reasoning behind it. The audience was able to sympathize with her and felt bad for why she was driven to kill. What makes this whole trial interesting is that we're given very little to go off of. A 3-minute music video that sometimes isn't clear at all about what happened doesn't help much. That's what Yuno is trying to tell us at the start of the second trial I mentioned earlier. She's upset at the audience for making assumptions regarding her life based on little evidence. Prisoner number 6, Mahiru, is an even better example of someone who was accused with little evidence. Her music video was super vague, just being a handful of images of her in different outfits, and some lyrics that seemed a little too obsessive about love, and that was all people needed to decide that she was guilty. At one point, I guess she does pounce on a pillow and feathers go flying, but what is that supposed to tell us? Everyone assumed she was a stalker, but there was little evidence to support this idea, which is why, in the second trial, she straight up tells us our theories were incorrect. We decided her fate based off of a feeling, which is crazy to think about. This happens in real-life trials now. Sometimes a jury is not given much evidence and is expected to make decisions based off of that without considering how the outcomes will affect the perpetrator. This is where ethics and morality come into play. What do we define as justifiable? What if we were given more information, like the second trial where she refuses that she's a stalker? But she did kill someone because of her obsession with love and her overly erratic behavior. Does that change our verdict? And the bigger question, what if we know what life will be like for the accused based on our votes afterwards? When the first trial's over, S reviews how each prisoner was deemed and then falls asleep. A large span of time passes and S wakes up for the second trial. It's now a whole new season, written based off of the outcomes of how we voted earlier. This is something I find super cool. The story is being written only after we discuss what we think. The creators of the Milgram Project take what we already have and create a whole nother trial based off of that. How many shows do something like that? Anyway, back on track. We were warned in the voice dramas from the first trial that our votes were going to affect things. A good example is prisoner number 10, Kotoko. She tells us if we vote her innocent, she'll act as our fangs and become someone who fights on our side. She explains how much she hates sin and people who hurt or kill the innocent. Now, we're not exactly sure what will happen, but the audience saw her music video of her killing a child predator and deemed her innocent. Because of this, just like she said, she became our fangs. So when S wakes up for the second trial to begin, we discover that Kotoko went on a rampage, attacking all the prisoners that were deemed guilty from the first trial. Now, when we talk to each prisoner who's been attacked, they're in a weakened state. They're disheveled, and their spirits are broken for the most part. And in one of their cases, this is a big spoiler, they end up dying because of it. We're forced to see firsthand how our simple vote has changed everything entirely. I remember watching it and thinking, well, yeah, I thought Kodako was innocent, but I didn't want all this to happen. That's the thing. Most of the time, other people's actions are out of our control. So when we're given an opportunity like this that will affect how the characters behave, we need to think heavily about it. For a lot of viewers, they probably didn't. They didn't factor the outcomes at all. Maybe they only cared about whether the crime was justifiable. Maybe they just liked a character's personality and voted them innocent. Regardless, there are probably a lot of people who made their votes like that without thinking of the outcomes, which were just as important in this story. Voting Kodako innocent didn't just affect her, it affected many of the other prisoners as well. In a real trial, when people act as a jury, we often don't get to see the effects that our choices create. But Milgram shows you point blank. It makes the audience question everything, that these choices that they made in the first trial that seemed so simple will actually impact everything and will even result in characters dying. Another example of a prisoner dying, this is also heavy spoilers, but Haruka, prisoner number 1. He becomes very attached to Mu and says that in the next trial, if we don't find her innocent, he will kill himself. Now the audience has learned that when the characters of Milgram say something, it shouldn't be taken lightly. Every choice is supposed to be thought out. This time, the audience does think about Mu, the girl who had been bullied and killed in a moment of hysterical panic. Her music video for Trial 2 is all about how she doesn't feel guilt because we decided she was innocent. It's literally called It's Not My Fault. And we can see that she herself was one of those popular girls that brought others down too. There was no sign of that in the first music video, which also teaches the audience that a definitive decision can't be made with such little evidence, just like Yuno and Mahiru. Even if we know the reasons behind each murder, we don't know the background behind it all, and that can just as easily change perspective. So now we're looking at how the population thinks. We have a choice to make. Do we vote her innocent knowing it will spare Haruka's life? Do we vote her guilty because it's clear her murder was more than what meets the eye? Well, it turns out the need to prove someone guilty prevailed because people turned on Mu. Holy moly, they did not think she should be innocent. I'm not even sure what this says about the psychology of a majority when it comes to decision making, but it's interesting to see that people chose to convict her over sparing Haruka. Also, it's interesting to see how skewed the votes are in the second trial. In the first trial, prisoners 1 through 8 have a pretty indecisive vote outcome. They're all 40-50 splits. But now check out the difference for the votes in the second trial. 70 and 80% of people agree on a verdict. I'm not definitively sure what caused these outcomes either. Perhaps it's because more evidence has come out and prisoners are starting to show their true personalities. It could be a result of time and the fandom has more time to discuss how they feel. But I, for one, think it's mostly a result of the consequences of our votes. Once we saw that characters were getting attacked or going crazy as a result of our votes, the audience was more unanimous with their votes to prevent certain outcomes. Kodako got a resounding guilty in the second trial, and I think that's because she went on a rampage and attacked other prisoners. I know I voted her guilty so that she would be restrained and prevent any more attacks from happening, even though I still think her murder was considered justifiable. I mean, the audience seemed to think so in the beginning. Her verdict was the biggest 180 between trials. Look at how much people turned on her just for attacking their faves. I'm gonna go ahead and stop talking about this before I just start explaining every little detail. I definitely left out a lot, so I encourage you to watch the series for yourself. The third trial has just begun, so now's the time to vote once the characters' music videos drop. If you're watching this after the series ended, I hope you're still able to enjoy the show and get a glimpse of how people think and vote based on a variety of factors, not just the actual murders themselves. This series is such a fascinating example of how far people are willing to draw the line to justify something, and how deciding opinions on others depends on more than just their actions. That makes it even more enjoyable if you can't be a part of the voting or discussions. In the description will be the Milgram website where you can vote and check out more about the story. There will also be a playlist I've been using to watch the music videos and voice dramas in order, so please check it out and share any thoughts you have in the comments. Now, I was going to say thanks for watching and just end it there, but as I finished the script, Yuno's final music video and voice drama were posted, and she does a great job at summarizing it all really well. This translation was made by the Twitter user on the screen. Human judgment is inherently imperfect. I roughly know how you've judged other inmates, but when it comes to me, it's just a matter of like-dislike. Different positions lead to different opinions. That's just how it is. To which S replies, "That's true. No matter which prisoner it was, there's no such thing as a perfect answer. I roughly know how you've judged other inmates, but when it comes to me, it's just a matter of like-dislike. I swear to God, you dogs. I love Kodako. She's my favorite. I'll admit it. When the first trial's over, S reviews how each prisoner. I'm a prisoner. Please spare me. At the time of recording this, the third trial has just begun, with the first music video already out. So if you're watching my music video, this is my music video. The real way we're able to uncover the story is through music videos! This is probably really funny for you to listen back and do, but I'm going to do it again, because this is kind of fun. There are 3 trials. Was that fun? Was that ASMR? That's probably fine, right? The end. Thank you. Bye.